New York City, the city that never sleeps, a place of dreams. But beneath the glamour, a darkness lurks, a darkness that can swallow you whole. On March 13th, 1964, that darkness claimed the life of Kitty Genovese. Her story shocked the world, it challenged our understanding of humanity, and it forced us to ask a chilling question. Would you have helped? Catherine Susan Genovese, Kitty to her friends, a vibrant young woman full of life. Working as a bar manager, she chased the American dream. March 13th began like any other. Kitty finished her shift at the bar. It was late, well past 3 a.m. She drove home, unaware of the horror that awaited. As she parked her car, a shadow emerged. A man, armed with a knife, approached. This was the beginning of a nightmare that would expose the dark side of human nature. Kitty's screams pierced the night. Lights flickered on in the apartment building across the street. 38 people, it was later reported, witnessed the attack. 38 pairs of eyes saw Kitty fighting for her life, but no one intervened. No one called the police. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Kitty's attacker fled and returned, her cries for help unanswered. Why? How could this happen? How could so many people stand by and do nothing? The answer lies in a chilling phenomenon, the bystander effect. And it's something we all need to understand. New York City in the 1960s. A melting pot of cultures and dreams, millions flocked to its bustling streets seeking opportunity and excitement. The city pulsed with a frenetic energy, a symphony of noise and motion. Kitty Genovese, like so many others, was drawn to the city's allure. She yearned for a life less ordinary, a life filled with promise and possibility. New York City, with its limitless potential, held the key to her dreams. It was a place where she could be anyone, achieve anything. But beneath the surface of glamour and excitement, a darker reality lurked. The city's underbelly, rife with crime and violence, often went unnoticed. The shadows held a silent threat, a constant reminder that danger could lurk around any corner. For Kitty, this hidden darkness would prove to be her undoing. Born in Brooklyn in 1935, Catherine Susan Genovese was a true New Yorker. The eldest of 5 children, she grew up in a close-knit Italian-American family. Her childhood was filled with the simple joys of family, friends, and the bustling city life around her. But even as a young girl, Kitty possessed a quiet determination, a yearning for something more. Life wasn't always easy for Kitty and her family. Financial struggles forced them to relocate to Connecticut for a period. Despite the challenges, Kitty remained a bright and cheerful presence, her spirit unbroken. She longed to return to the city that held her heart, the city that promised a brighter future. In 1954, her family's fortunes improved and they moved back to New York City. Kitty, now a young woman, embraced the opportunity to build her life in the city she loved. She found work, made new friends, and began to carve her own path. Little did she know, her journey would be tragically cut short. Kitty found herself in Kew Gardens, Queens, a neighborhood known for its relative tranquility. Tree-lined streets and spacious parks created an illusion of safety and serenity. It was a far cry from the hustle and bustle of Manhattan, offering a respite from the city's relentless energy. Here, Kitty hoped to find peace, security, and a place to truly call home. She shared a small apartment with her roommate, Mary Ann. Their days were filled with the routines of work, errands, and the occasional night out with friends. Kitty, working as a bar manager, often returned home late at night, her earnings a testament to her hard work and dedication. The streets of Kew Gardens, quiet and dimly lit, seemed harmless enough. But beneath the veneer of peace, a sense of unease lingered. Crime, though less prevalent than in other parts of the city, was not unheard of. The darkness held an unspoken threat, a reminder that even in the quietest corners of the city, danger could lurk. For Kitty, this sense of unease would soon transform into a terrifying reality. Life as a bar manager was demanding, but Kitty faced each day with her characteristic optimism. She enjoyed the social aspect of her job, the camaraderie of her co-workers, and the regular interactions with patrons. Her earnings, though modest, represented her independence, her ability to support herself in the city she loved. But Kitty's aspirations extended far beyond the confines of her job. She harbored dreams of a brighter future, a future filled with love, family, and fulfillment. She yearned for a deeper purpose, a chance to make a meaningful impact on the world around her. Her friends often spoke of her infectious laughter, her kind heart, and her unwavering belief in the goodness of others. Kitty's spirit, vibrant and full of life, touched everyone she met. Unbeknownst to her, her time was running out. The events of March 13th, 1964, would forever etch her name into history, not for her dreams and aspirations, but for a tragedy that would expose the dark side of human nature. The clock ticked past 3 a.m. Kitty Genovese steered her car into the parking lot behind her apartment building. The streets of Kew Gardens were deserted, shrouded in an eerie silence. Exhaustion tugged at her, but she was used to the late-night routine. She turned off the ignition, the engine sputtering to a stop. A wave of fatigue washed over her as she stepped out of the car. The cool night air sent a shiver down her spine, and she pulled her coat tighter around her. Unbeknownst to Kitty, a pair of eyes watched her every move from the shadows. He had been waiting for this moment, his presence concealed by the darkness. As Kitty walked towards her building, her thoughts drifted to the comfort of her bed. She was oblivious to the danger lurking just steps behind her, a predator closing in on his prey. The tranquility of the night was about to be shattered. A sudden movement, a flash of steel. Kitty let out a scream as a man lunged at her, a knife glinting in his hand. The attacker, Winston Moseley, a stranger driven by a dark impulse, struck with brutal force. Kitty fought back with every ounce of strength, her screams echoing through the silent night. Lights flickered on in the apartment building across the street. Awoken by the commotion, residents peered out their windows, drawn to the scene below. From their vantage point, they witnessed a struggle, a woman's desperate cries for help, but their concern was tempered by distance, their sense of urgency dulled by the safety of their homes. One by one, they turned away from the windows, retreating into the comfort of their apartments. Some convinced themselves it was just a lover's quarrel, a private matter best left undisturbed. Others, paralyzed by fear or apathy, simply chose not to get involved. Kitty's screams, though heard, failed to ignite any meaningful action. Badly wounded but alive, Kitty managed to break free from her attacker's grasp. Moseley, startled by a voice from a nearby window, retreated into the shadows. Kitty, her clothes torn and blood staining her coat, stumbled towards her building. A flicker of hope emerged, a chance for survival, but it was short-lived. Moseley, his bloodlust unsatisfied, returned to the scene. He stalked through the parking lot, his eyes scanning for any sign of his victim. Kitty, leaning against the wall, struggled to catch her breath, her body racked with pain and fear. Her nightmare was far from over. In the apartment building across the street, the lights that had flickered on moments earlier began to dim. The residents, reassured by the momentary silence, retreated back into their lives, their concern waning. They convinced themselves that the danger had passed, that the police had been called, that someone else would take responsibility. Their inaction sealed Kitty's fate. Section 4. 38. Silent witnesses. Moseley found Kitty, her strength fading, her hope dwindling. He attacked again, his rage unleashed with renewed fury. Stabbed repeatedly, Kitty's screams pierced the night, but this time they were met with an eerie silence. No lights flickered on, no voices called out, no one came to her rescue. 38 witnesses, it was later reported, had witnessed the attack. 38 individuals, safe in their homes, had heard Kitty's cries for help, but had chosen to do nothing. The bystander effect, a chilling phenomenon in which individuals are less likely to offer help when other bystanders are present, had taken hold. The weight of their inaction hung heavy in the air, a collective silence that spoke volumes. Kitty Genovese, alone and abandoned, succumbed to her injuries, her life tragically cut short. Her death, a stark reminder of the dark side of human nature, would spark outrage, soul-searching, and a national conversation about the responsibilities we bear towards one another. The news of Kitty Genovese's murder sent shockwaves through New York City. 38 witnesses saw the attack, yet none intervened. How could this happen? The story gripped the public's imagination, igniting outrage and disbelief. Headlines screamed of apathy, painting a bleak picture of urban life. Kitty's image, alone and crying for help, seared into the collective consciousness. Her death symbolized urban decay and moral decline, forcing society to confront an unsettling truth. The Kitty Genovese case became a tragic case study in what psychologists would later term the bystander effect. This social psychological phenomenon describes the tendency for individuals to be less likely to help a victim when other bystanders are present. The more bystanders there are, the less likely any one individual is to take action, assuming that someone else will intervene. Several factors contribute to this diffusion of responsibility. People may assume that someone else is more qualified to help, or that their intervention is unnecessary. They may fear embarrassment, retaliation, or legal repercussions. Or they may simply convince themselves that the situation is not as serious as it appears, rationalizing their inaction. In Kitty Genovese's case, the darkness of night, the perceived safety of their homes, and the assumption that someone else had already called the police likely contributed to the bystanders' inaction. Fear, too, may have played a role, as some witnesses later admitted to being afraid of the attacker or unsure of how to help. Whatever the reasons, the tragic outcome remained the same. A young woman lost her life while dozens of people who could have helped stood by. Section 3. Diffusion of responsibility, the paradox of numbers. The bystander effect highlights a chilling paradox. The presence of others, rather than offering safety in numbers, can actually inhibit helping behaviour. We look to others for cues on how to act. And when everyone hesitates, a norm of inaction takes hold. The responsibility to act, diffused among the group, becomes a burden no one is willing to shoulder. This diffusion of responsibility is particularly potent in ambiguous situations where the need for help is unclear. When we are unsure whether a situation is truly an emergency, we are less likely to intervene, especially if others seem equally uncertain. The desire to avoid embarrassment, to fit in, and to maintain the status quo often outweighs the urge to help. The bystander effect is not limited to life or death situations. It can manifest in everyday life, from ignoring a homeless person begging for change to failing to speak up against injustice. The more we allow ourselves to be passive observers, the more we normalize indifference and erode our capacity for compassion. Section 4. The cost of silence, a life unnecessarily lost. In the aftermath of Kitty Genovese's murder, many struggled to comprehend the bystanders' inaction. How could they have stood by and watched as a young woman was brutally attacked? The answer, as uncomfortable as it may be, lies in the complexities of human nature. We are all susceptible to the bystander effect, capable of rationalizing inaction and surrendering to the comfort of conformity. The trial of Winston Moseley, Kitty's attacker, captivated the nation. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the trial, while bringing a sense of justice, did little to soothe the collective conscience. The haunting question lingered. Could Kitty's life have been saved if just one person had intervened? The answer, though impossible to know for certain, is a resounding maybe. A single phone call, a shout for help, any sign of intervention could have startled the attacker, alerted others, or bought Kitty precious time. The cost of silence in this case was immeasurable, a life unnecessarily lost, a community forever scarred. Section 5. Echoes of Kitty's case, a timeless reminder. The legacy of Kitty Genovese's case extends far beyond the tragic events of that March night. It ignited a national conversation about bystander apathy, prompting research, awareness campaigns, and the development of bystander intervention training programs. The case serves as a timeless reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a safer, more compassionate society. We must challenge the instinct to remain silent, to assume someone else will act, to prioritize our own comfort over the well-being of others. We must cultivate a sense of shared responsibility, recognizing that even small acts of courage can make a difference. By speaking up, reaching out, and refusing to be passive bystanders, we honor Kitty's memory and work towards a future where such tragedies are less likely to occur. The echoes of Kitty's case resonate today, urging us to confront the bystander within ourselves and to cultivate a spirit of active compassion. Her story, though rooted in tragedy, carries a message of hope. We have the power to choose differently, to be upstanders instead of bystanders, and to create a world where no one has to face violence and injustice alone. The news of Kitty Genovese's murder spread like wildfire, engulfing New York City in shock and indignation. The media seized upon the case with insatiable hunger. Headlines screamed of 38 silent witnesses, painting a damning portrait of apathy. The New York Times played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative. A now famous article emphasized the alleged inaction of 38 witnesses. The article captured public attention but distorted the case, fueling collective guilt and outrage. Television crews descended upon Kew Gardens, interviewing residents and experts. Talk shows buzzed with discussions about urban decay and moral decline. The Kitty Genovese murder became a national obsession, both horrifying and fascinating the public. The media frenzy amplified the tragedy and sparked a conversation about bystander apathy and social responsibility. The case forced society to confront uncomfortable truths and grapple with indifference in the face of suffering. The Kitty Genovese murder exposed a raw nerve in the psyche of New York City, revealing a deep-seated fear of urban anonymity and the chilling potential for human indifference. The city, once a symbol of progress and opportunity, suddenly seemed like a cold, unforgiving place where individuals were easily lost in the crowd, their cries for help swallowed by the din of city life. The case tapped into a growing sense of unease about rising crime rates, social unrest, and the changing demographics of the city. The image of Kitty Genovese, a young woman brutally murdered while her neighbors allegedly ignored her pleas for help, became a potent symbol of urban decay and the disintegration of community bonds. The murder sparked a wave of fear and paranoia, leading many to question the safety of their neighborhoods and the trustworthiness of their neighbors. People became more wary of strangers, more reluctant to get involved, and more likely to retreat into the perceived safety of their homes. The Kitty Genovese murder, though a tragic anomaly, cast a long shadow over New York City, leaving an enduring legacy of fear, suspicion, and a diminished sense of community. While the Kitty Genovese murder rightfully sparked outrage and soul-searching, the narrative that emerged from the media frenzy often strayed from the complexities of reality. The sensationalized accounts, emphasizing the alleged inaction of 38 witnesses, overshadowed the nuances of the case, perpetuating a distorted view of both the event itself and the nature of bystander apathy. Over time, researchers and journalists began to question the accuracy of the 38 witnesses' claim, uncovering inconsistencies and exaggerations in the original reports. While there were undoubtedly witnesses who heard or saw portions of the attack, the notion that 38 people passively observed the entire ordeal has been widely debunked. The distortion of the Kitty Genovese story, though unintentional, highlights the power of media narratives and the importance of critical thinking. The case serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of accepting simplified explanations for complex events and the need to approach such tragedies with nuance and empathy. Despite the distortions and myths that have surrounded the case, Kitty Genovese's story continues to hold relevance, prompting ongoing research, discussions, and reflections on the nature of bystander behavior and the importance of fostering a culture of active compassion. The Kitty Genovese murder, though a tragedy, sparked a movement for change, prompting communities to confront bystander apathy. It highlighted the need for awareness, education, and empowerment to foster a proactive society. Bystander intervention programs teach recognizing dangerous situations and intervening safely. The 911 system reflects a shift towards action, empowering individuals to help. By fostering a culture of empathy and action, we honor Kitty Genovese's memory. Kitty Genovese. Her name echoes through time, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human heart. A symbol of tragic loss, but also a catalyst for change. Her story forced us to confront the bystander effect, to acknowledge the chilling power of indifference. But from tragedy, hope emerged. A call to action, a commitment to do better. Today, we are more aware. more willing to intervene, to break the silence, to be the one who helps. One phone call, one act of courage can make all the difference. Kitty Genovese's legacy lives on. In every act of kindness, every intervention, every life saved. Let us honor her memory by choosing compassion over indifference, by being the change we want to see in the world.